Hello, and welcome to another episode of Operation 8-Bit Nibbles and Bites. I'm your host, Tony Landy, and over there we have Sparky running the camera and making snarky comments. In our episode on making the mini Commodore 1702 monitor, I mentioned that we were trying a khaki-colored printer filament that we were hoping would be a close color match to the classic bread bin 64. What you don't know is that we actually tried a few different filaments for that project. But unfortunately, none of them were even close, and we wound up having to paint the case anyway. While it came out looking fine in the end, it would have made life easier if we didn't have to go through that extra step. Now, we have a few more projects planned around our C64 Mini, so we started looking for a PLA that would be a closer color match to it. Lucky for us, we didn't have to search too far, and we came across this post on Twitter for a PLA from a company called Printed Solid. So we picked some up, and we're going to give it a try. Now, before we get started, I would like to call out that Printed Solid is not sponsoring this video, and they are not paying us to endorse or review their products. We paid for this out of our own pockets. Okay, before we get started, this is the part where I remind you that if you haven't done so already, please make sure to hit that subscribe button. Okay, with that out of the way, let's get to it. The filament that we're going to be looking at is from a company called Printed Solid, and it's called Jessie, which is apparently the name of the CEO's dog. Now, the company doesn't sell this particular product on Amazon, so we had to jump over to their website. Looking through the product page, the specs are pretty standard, but they do proudly promote that this filament is made right here in the good old US of A. The color that's supposed to be a match to the C64 is called the Tan 64. Reading through the company's Twitter feed, it's obviously where they got the inspiration for the name and the color. Apparently, Dave isn't just a dog lover, he's also a retro computer geek. Anyway, looking at the dog model, I didn't think the color was going to be a match at first, but there is a second pick that does seem closer to what we're looking for. Price is reasonable at $19 a kilo, but when you go to check out, there's only a single shipping option, 3 to 5 day ground by the USPS, and the shipping charge to Texas was almost as much as the filament. I decided to go back and add another spool, and this time I went with the beige 500, which is supposed to be a match for the Amiga and the Commodore 128. This did jump my shipping charges a few bucks, but at least it wasn't twice the cost. Now, I could have added a third spool, which would have qualified me for their free shipping promo, but I decided against it. For our test print, we decided to go with a scale model of the 1541 floppy drive. Now, if you've watched our video on the mini Commodore 1702 monitor that we built, then you've already seen how this came out at the end of that episode. What you didn't see is that our first few attempts at using this PLA didn't start off that well. Without really thinking about it, I just loaded the filament into the printer and fired it off. But it became apparent really fast that something was wrong. As you can see in this clip, we were getting some serious under extrusion. What that means is that the material wasn't feeding well enough, which was resulting in those large gaps in the first layer. When this happens, one of the first things to look at is the print temp. Now, I do most of my prints at about 200 degrees Celsius without a problem, but in this case, that didn't seem to be working. I canceled the job and swapped over to printing a temperature tower. Now, this is basically a model that prints the same pattern multiple times at gradually decreasing temperatures. Basically, it's a print that helps you find the optimal temperature for the particular filament that you're using. Now, it's hard to see on this video, but after looking over the print carefully, I decided that this material was printing best between 200 and 230. So I kicked up the temp to the high end and tried again. And as you can see, this print is coming out much, much better than before. Okay, let's take a look at how it came out and see how close of a color match it actually is. On the workbench, I have our C64 Mini that we're going to use as the baseline. I also have our 1702 monitor that I spray painted with a camo colored paint, and our 1541 model that I just printed with the Jessie Tan 64. Looking at the painted monitor, the color is close, but it is noticeably darker than the C64 Mini. On the other hand, the part we printed with the color match PLA is almost spot on. I'm not sure if this is coming through on the video, but up close, it's maybe just a shade off. If you remember, we also picked up a spool of the beige 500. This is the color that should be a match for an Amiga as well as a Commodore 64C and a Commodore 128. I didn't have a particular project in mind for this PLA, so for the sake of this video, I just reprinted the temperature tower so we could see how close of a color match it actually was. This also allowed me to test if the temperature setting is consistent across the two spools. And again, as you can see, it's pretty spot on in both regards. So what's the final verdict? Overall, I have to say that I'm really pleased with the Jessie PLAs that we tested. The colors are super close to the Commodore machines, and once I got the temperature dialed in, the prints came out really nice. The only negative I have is what I called out earlier regarding the shipping charges. When I add those in for these two rolls of filament, it brings my cost up to about $27 a kilo, or about $8 more a roll than I typically pay. But even with that, I'm definitely going to be picking up more of this in the future for some projects that we have planned. The beige 500 in particular will come in handy since that was a relatively common color for computers in the late 1980s and early 1990s. So there are some applications outside of the Commodore line it will work for. However, given the price difference, I definitely won't be using it for prototyping any of the parts for those builds. Okay, so that about wraps it up for this episode of Nibbles and Bites. Again, I'd like to remind everyone that Printed Solid did not sponsor this video or compensate us in any way to endorse or review these products. Honestly, we hadn't tried a product review video before, and we wanted to see how it would work out if we did. So if you enjoyed this video and you'd like us to do more content like this, please make sure to subscribe to our channel and leave a comment and definitely hit that thumbs up button. Finally, as a reminder, please remember that all of the profits and any ad revenue that we make from this YouTube channel goes to support charitable organizations like the Tour de Force 9/11 Memorial Bike Ride. They in turn use those funds to support the families of law enforcement officers who lose their lives in the line of duty every year. As always, for a complete list of all the charities we support and how you can help, please visit our website. I've left a link to that in the description below. Again, we hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you next time on Operation 8-Bit.